Hello, Guru Nation. Welcome back, everybody. How are you guys doing? We've got today a very special guest. Honestly, we have we have Tiffany Ashton. This is somebody I have no clue how, Tiffany, you flew under my radar because when I looked up and actually looked you up, I'm like, you're everywhere. But how did I miss? I don't know. I'm doing my own I'm just too busy doing my own thing. I don't even get out of my own little space to see what's going on. But once I started looking into you, I'm like, man, this girl's everywhere. So Tiffany Ashton, she's been in the industry since 2003. All right. She
Mhm.
does study rescue. She's the director of operations for Flint Essentials. As you can see on her jacket there, she got Flint Essentials logo representing there. This both are very interesting topics and both are going to have a bunch of things we can unpack. But before all of that, thank you so much, Tiffany, for coming on.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks for having me.
So, 2003.
Mhm.
How did you get into research? How does this happen?
Okay, so 2003, I was a high school graduate moving from Los Angeles to San Diego because I had been accepted to San Diego State University and I was starting in August classes. And I said, hey, I need a part time job. I need to supplement this going to school. So I started looking around and applying. I had some skills as an admin assistant. And so I was able to look up at a site management organization. I applied. They
Mm,
were looking for an admin assistant to answer phones and, sign for packages, just do the admin type of work. And so I interviewed and I was hired. And, I just started observing the day to day. I said, where is that person going? And where are they going? And we had a main central location, and the study coordinators would travel to the various doctors' offices within the African American and Hispanic community. So our niche was African American and Hispanic clinical research trials and getting more of that community
really,
involved.
that was the niche.
Yeah. Yeah,
This
that was the
company
niche.
was early. I mean, this was like a
Mhm.
decade before Black women in research and Latinos in research.
Exactly. They were ahead of their time.
Wow.
So I saw the study coordinators leaving from our main office, going to the different clinics, coming back at the end of the day. And I was like, wow, what are they doing? Because it looks intriguing. And so I asked the clinical director, I said, hey, can I learn a little bit more about this? And she was like, yeah, you're a sharp cookie. I think you can catch on,
Wow. But if you would have
we
never asked that, it wouldn't have happened, right?
never would have happened. I would have just been, doing what I was doing in my admin world. So she said, yeah. And so what I started to do is sit in on the SIVs and the PSVs and the, training sessions. And I was enrolled in doing my prerequisites for, at that time, it was accounting was my degree. But I was doing my prerequisites and I started adding like medical terminology courses to it and just learning as
Wow.
many like medical terminology and med courses that I could take, weave them into my undergrad
So you caught
classes.
you caught the bug for somehow clinical research resonated with you even before you
Yeah,
really knew much about it.
exactly. Before I
Why do you
knew
think
much
that
about it.
was? Like, what do you think it was about it?
I always loved medical. I always loved medical. I wanted to be an orthodontist, but so I was in the medical field, dentistry, so I always loved medical. That intrigued me. And actually, after about working in and like observing clinical research and taking my prerequisites for accounting, I was like, accounting's not for me, and I ended up switching to anthropology. Now anthropology, San Diego State wasn't pre-med, so I would have had to go to a whole totally different school to like be like medical school, but I switched to anthropology and I loved it. I loved that science base. We worked with bones. We had a bone lab and we had to put together a human skeleton back together, there from there. So the science really started to come out, and I was like, wow, I love this. So I finished up my degree as anthropology, but um, in the beginning, when I was still learning research, I was able to shadow. I was able to, observe. They shadowed me for about 3 to 6 months,
Mm,
somewhere around there, before they were comfortable and I knew enough to be able to take my own project on. And
right.
so that's how I got my start.
Yeah, 3 months is about the right time until you start, getting the
Hmm.
training wheels off and can
Hmm.
start doing some assisting, coordinating, and then before you
Exactly.
know it, coordinator, especially if you're at a busy clinic like that. I mean, so is that SMO still around?
No, it actually went out of business. But
Man,
maybe they'll get back in. Maybe they'll get back in. I have to call their director and see.
business is so tough,
I
company. I
know.
mean, if you give it what, that was like 15 years. If you
Hmm.
give it 15 years, like something like 90% of companies will no longer be around. And that seemed
Exactly.
like it was one that was successful and ahead of its time as
Hmm.
far
Hmm.
as minority participation. Nobody was talking about that back then.
At all. They were ahead of their time, and they can probably get back in. And definitely was something I would be interested in helping collaborate with them because
Yeah,
that's where I got my foundation.
the SMO model still exists. It's just no one calls it that anymore. They call it site networks now because
Hmm.
it's a
Hmm.
it's a more I guess easier to take term from the sponsors because a few of the SMOs really messed it up for everybody in the
Yeah.
mid 2000s. But that's a whole nother podcast. All right, so coordinator, what
Yes.
from there? Like what happened as far as your career?
Yeah, so I did 4 years of coordinating while I was going to San Diego State. So when I graduated,
Wow. Okay.
I was when I tell you, I was doing clinic Monday, Wednesday, Friday, school classes Tuesday, Thursday. I was getting it in. I
Wow.
was getting it in.
So you had no life, no time to party, any of that
No
stuff.
time.
San Diego
No time.
State's party school. You had no
I
time
know
for
it
that?
is. Head in the books. Head in the books.
Wow, wow.
Yeah. So and the patients, but I really enjoyed that time. So after the 4 years, then I had my degree and 4 years experience, and I was able to get a hybrid position. It was an interesting role. It was a CRC/CRA role. Never
Hmm.
seen it since. It was for a big pharmaceutical. Well, it was a phase 4 study, and it was for a big breast implant manufacturer. And they had to enroll 60,000 ladies in their long term follow up study. So we were working with plastic surgeons. And because we were working with plastic surgeons, some plastic surgeons, they didn't know about research and they could care less because they were
Right.
in their own plastic surgeon world.
Right.
And so for some sites, I had to be like a study coordinator. I had to help them consent the site. I mean, consent the patients because they didn't know about
Right. The
consenting at
physician
all.
could care less
Yeah,
like about
e-
that. Yeah.
exactly. And then for other sites, they had a patient coordinator and they consented. And so for those, I just more so monitored, like, okay, all these consents were captured
Was this
correctly.
all in SoCal?
Yeah, it was actually, I had SoCal. I had from Orange County down to San Diego and Hawaii. I had Honolulu, Hawaii as my
Wow.
territory. I went to
Okay.
Hawaii so many times I was tired of going to Hawaii,
So you were like a coordinator sales rep.
Yeah, and I worked very closely with the sales reps. They were like
Wow.
we were like this, and that's why I said it was a unique position. I haven't seen it since, but I did that role for 3.5 years until we got all 60,000 women enrolled. And so,
But
yeah.
see, jobs like that, like the ones you like the unique ones or the ones that are like obscure. I mean, nobody
Hmm.
thinks phase 4 is like amazing opportunity. It's just,
Yeah.
it's like an afterthought. But in your
Hmm.
case, it was like the foundation for your career because it really made you a generalist. Like
Yeah.
you learned what physicians need, you learned what
Hmm.
sites need, you learned what sponsors needed. I mean, and then you learn all the ins and outs like monitoring, coordinating, all that stuff
Hmm.
too.
Exactly. Yeah. So after that contract was done, then I wanted to get some sponsor experience. And so I was in San Diego at that time. So I applied at a small biotech in San Diego and I came in as an in house CRA.
Mm.
And within about 4 to 5 months, I was shadowing my project manager, and there was an opening for a project manager on another phase 4 study. And they said, "Hey, you've been here. Would you like to consider it? And I said, yeah. And so I got a lot of training there. The small biotech, we only had 17 people in the whole clinical department. And so we were very hands on, teaching each other, learning from each other. And so I went on to run a whole investigators meeting, negotiate contracts, budgets, work with data management on the EDC database build and ECRF guidelines and protocol, and creating, documents and binders and vendor oversight. So got a lot of experience from that role.
Wow. Yeah, I always say small is the new big, and
Mm-hmm.
you were doing that, what was that, like mid 2000s or mid to late 2000s?
2010. 2010.
Wow. Is
Yeah.
that biotech still around? Did it
Yeah,
succeed?
they actually got bought by Nestle.
Okay, okay. So they
Yes.
succeeded then. So they
Mhm.
had, because even for that, it's rare that you see like the drug. Usually these small biotechs only have like two or three things in the pipeline, and
Mhm.
maybe if they're lucky, one of them makes it or shows
Mhm.
promise, and then another
Mhm.
company buys them, and then you become a big organization, right? So now that one's like Nestle. It's a part of
Yeah,
Nestle.
exactly. Yeah, so that they did both. They had drug and diagnostic testing because it was like a lab it was like a biotech where they had a lab arm. So they
I
were able to
see.
stay in the business a little bit longer because they had a different niche. It wasn't just a product. They also did like diagnostic testing for like different kind of cancers and different things like that. So they had a nice little portfolio themselves.
Huh. So were you there when they got acquired, or did you leave by then?
But it was right at the tail end. I was there when they got acquired, and then they kind of started shifting up the clinical department. And I said,
Yeah.
"Ooh, I don't know about this. Let me go on over to
They bring their
CRO
own
world."
people, right? Because see,
Yeah.
a lot of people don't talk about that. When you work for a small, and I've never worked for a small biotech. All my experience is just from talking to people like you and reading books.
Mhm.
But I contracted for a small biotech, but I'm not like in their culture.
Mhm.
So it seems like these companies, they lose their culture when they get acquired,
Mhm.
and then it becomes less about innovating and more about just protecting what they already have.
Mhm. Yeah.
And it's not for everybody, basically,
E
at that point.
exactly. Yeah, and that's I saw some writings on the wall, and I was like, "Okay, I don't know,
once
if
they
I
start
like this change."
once they
Yeah.
start prioritizing stuff that doesn't matter,
Yeah.
it's time to, if you're that kind of person, which you seem like you are, you're the
Mhm.
type of person that likes to be in there from the ground level doing
Mhm.
things and generalist. So yeah, at that point you just have to be like a cog in the wheel, and it's not like, for people like you and I, that's not fun for us.
Exactly.
There's other things we could be doing. So what happened after that? So you,
Yeah, so then after that, that was my first. I went on to be had my first taste of CRO world, and that was good. And so I came on as an unblinded CRA. So I was an unblinded CRA on a vaccine study, and
hmm,
so that gave me the whole experience to like unblind it because at that point, and I think that was probably 2011. That was probably around the first time that unblinded CRA as a role even came out. Like I didn't know about it previous to then. But yeah, it was something where it was like, okay, yeah, let me get some experience in this arm because I've never seen it before. So I did that. And then simultaneously, they made me a lead CRA on another study. So I was split. I was unblinded CRA and then a lead CRA on another
wow,
study.
you were a lead CRA.
Yeah, so the lead CRA was fun because I was like the right hand to the CTM at the time.
Oh, and that's right, because you
Hmm.
were CRC/CRA,
Hmm.
so you
Hmm.
were qualified to be lead CRA. It
Hmm.
makes sense. Makes sense.
Exactly. Yeah. And then, so, I love lead CRA because I had the CRAs on the team and running the meetings, working with them, but then also liaisoning with the sponsor and, being on that whole, what are our clinical deliverables looking like? And, making sure to push those timelines. So yes, I stayed in that lead CRA space for about a year and a half until that study was done. And then that particular CRO started changing lead CRAs into CTM ones at that point. And so like that role just faded off. So then I just became a CTM1 on, it gave me an oncology study actually. It was a phase 1 oncology study. So that
And
was my first.
that was new to you, oncology.
Yeah, that was my first oncology indication as a CTM. And then I had worked on like an oncology study at that small biotech as like an in-house CRA. So I had a little bit of oncology there.
Okay. For the people that don't know, I get these questions a lot, and I tell them, look, it's every company has different acronym and title. CTM at one place might mean a whole different thing at another place.
Yeah.
So can you explain what that is in comparison to CRA?
Yeah. So clinical trial manager, the study is on your shoulders. I want to say, I mean, it's not pretty, but you are responsible for the study. And you work with all of the departments, so data management, regulatory, finance. You work very closely with the sponsor. Like the sponsor will be on calls and they'll say, okay, we want to have a database lock by the 4th of September. And then as the CTM, you say, okay, all right, I hear you. I acknowledge that. Let me work with the team and see if that's possible. Because sometimes it's quick and, it's 2 weeks away or straight. That may not be possible. So you want to take it in, work with the team, the various departments. That's where the CTMs would sometimes reach out to the CRAs. Hey, can you get on site? Can you do more visits? Can you stay more on site? Because we have a database lock and this just came down from the sponsor.
So you're working with the lead CRA? Like you're telling the lead CRA, hey, I need your CRAs to be out there now. Like everyone's have a visit coming up?
Yeah, so sometimes, it depends on the company. Not every company has a lead CRA role. Sometimes it's the CTM, and then right under the CTM, it's the CRA. So there's not even a lead CRA to speak to and roll out. It's sometimes you are the CTM and you are responsible for clinical deliverables. So you're managing the CRAs, you're reviewing their trip
So
reports.
that was you.
Yeah, so that was me. Yeah, that was me. Once I went from lead CRA and they dissolved that lead CRA role and I just went into CTM, I didn't have a lead CRA under me. I was the CTM in charge of the clinical deliverables, speaking with the sponsor, and then also working with the CRAs.
So at your company, would you have been also considered like a line manager as well? No,
that's different. So the line managers are like, you think of line managers as like career. If you want to talk about your career and moving to the next level, promotions, maybe being paid for going to school and approving, different expenses for like continual education, that's the line manager. So those are the line managers. And then the CTMs are in charge of clinical deliverables. And if there's a problem with the CRA, I'm speaking to the line manager. I'm saying, hey, they're behind on their trip reports. They're behind on their expense reports. So my manager to manager conversation is with the line manager there. So that's how it goes. So the CTM, the way that's different from a CRA, the CRA, they take their marching orders from the CTM and then they go to their sites and they manage their sites. And then they have to roll all that information back up to the CTM, and the CTM has to report to the sponsor and say, hey, we're on track for database lock, or, oh no, we're not on track because this one particular site, we're maxed out. We can't get on site. Here's our contingency plans. So we do a lot of risk management, recruitment, retention, all of those things as a CTM.
Did you have a project manager with you to work?
Yeah. So the project manager is above the CTM. And so sometimes though at companies, project manager and CTM, the same name is used interchangeably.
Right.
And so sometimes it gets confusing because you're like, oh, I'm a project manager or I'm a CTM. And the one distinction that I would always ask, and during interviews, I say, when they say, we're looking for a project manager or we're looking for a CTM, I say, am I in charge of the clinical deliverables? And when they say, yes, you're in charge of the clinical deliverables, that means you're a CTM, in which I just described. You're over the CRAs, you're working with the various departments, you're in charge of meeting the deadlines. On the other hand, project manager, though, is they work with the sponsor directly, and they talk about like portfolio level things and overarching, like, this is what we're going to do for this compound across 15 different
I
studies.
see.
Yeah, so they're more overarching, where the CTMs are day-to-day clinical deliverables for that one study.
One study, okay. So you were CTM, one study at a
Yeah,
time.
CTM, but sometimes they'll give you 2 studies. I mean, one time I had 4 studies at a CRO
Wow.
as a CTM. So yeah, so you can have multiple studies as a CTM.
They know how to work their resources. I'm telling you, those
down to
CROs.
the bone.
Yes, they do, which is a problem in the industry. I guess if we have more time, we can talk about that. But well, actually, maybe now's a good time. So
Yeah.
because you were in charge of CRAs, right? One of the not so well kept secret is CRA turnover is very high, still is. I'm sure you dealt with that.
Yeah.
Staffing issues. So what, like, the last thing you would need is CRAs to quit in the middle of deadlines, right?
The last thing that I would need, Dan.
So what happens if they quit? You have to go do it?
You try to get the others that are left on the team to cover, if possible.
Yeah.
I mean, I really think being a strong CTM is about the relationships that you have. And a part of working with the sponsor and getting that information, like the directions, we want interim analysis, database lock, this many patients enrolled by this time, is I've always put myself in the study coordinator's shoes and the CRA's shoes, because I've been a study coordinator and I've been a CRA. So what I would do, and I haven't had CRAs, maybe 1 or 2, but it wasn't me necessarily, leave my team. It wasn't they left because, I didn't like Tiffany. It was because of other reasons. But I always work with my CRAs. I'm like, hey, this is what's coming down the pipeline. How can I help you? I know you're going to be on the road. Let me roll up my sleeves. Let me pull some data management reports. Let me follow up with your CRAs. Let me help you so you can just focus on that. And then the same time, I would go to their sites and I say, hey, we have an upcoming database lock and you have 100 queries. Can we split this to do 5 queries for the next 4 weeks? We can get this out the way. So when your monitor comes on site, they can just hit it and we can just all, we're working together. And because of my personality and just, I know I've been in those shoes before, it's always kind of worked where the team. So it's really about the CTM dynamic will really be able to see if your CRAs have a high turnover, because a lot of people, they're like, I love you. You're the best CTM that I've ever had. Like I want to be on your team kind of thing, because I make it, like we're working together. I'm not like, you got to do it and you got to do it by Tuesday. I'm like, okay, how can I help you? And that makes a big difference. That makes a huge difference to that turnover, because if you have a good CTM, are you going to be like, okay, well, I'm going to go into the unknown and get a bad CTM? Or are you like, hey, I might want to stay here? That kind of thing.
I see.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Good point. So, knowing that, hey, I'm working with Tiffany and she is reasonable. She's been a CRA. So did you ever push back on the sponsors? Like they ask you things and you're like, look, my CRAs are going to quit if you ask me this. Like, let's compromise.
Yeah, so I wouldn't say that they would quit, but I would say
that's what I would say.
yeah, I would use because you gotta be politically correct. So they want to hear yes, but sometimes you can't say yes. Yeah. And so what I would say, so let's just say we want to have the first site activated January 7th of 2022, and we're starting right now, but we don't even have a final protocol. Sometimes you do have to push back and say, hey, well, we can't do that because we don't have X, Y, Z. Or we can't do that because, the holidays, they're not going to be able to get on site to activate a site because of the holidays. So you have to take a look at, if you're not able to meet that deliverable, why? But what's the next best solution? Okay, we can't do January 7th, but we can do January 21st because that will give everyone time to get back from the holidays, all of the vendors to send out all of the supplies, protocol can be written and IRB approved during this time, all of these things, so you have to look at a holistic approach and really be able
So
to
you
understand.
came up with those solutions as a CTM, like you have full
Yes.
autonomy, like
Yeah.
the
So
January 7th, 21st thing. You don't need to ask anybody. It's like, this is the day I think we can do it, and that's it.
Well, yeah. So you work with the various departments. So that's why you have to liaison with data management. When's the database going to be built? Like sometimes they need 12 weeks to build a database, and that's a part of first site activated. Do we have a database that's live? You got to work with regulatory because sometimes you can't be in each country. In the sense of like if we had Canada, US, and Belgium as countries that we want to do the study in, I'm going to select US as my country of choice to be the first site activated because Health Canada and Belgium, their regulatory authorities, they have long cycles and just having the experience or liaisoning with regulatory, they'll be like, yeah, no, that's not going to happen to get a site activated in those two countries in the next 4 months. That's not, like their timelines are 6 months or 8 months or something like that. So you do have to work as a CTM with multiple departments. Everybody has to give their input so you can be able to say this date's going to work because we've checked it in these various areas.
Wow.
Because the sponsor is going to run with that date. Like as soon as you say January 7th, they're going with it. There's no, maybe.
A lot of times it's because, especially these biotechs, they tell investors,
Yeah,
they
exactly.
make statements like public press releases,
Mm-hmm.
so that they put out estimated study date January 7th. So then all the investors get happy, they start buying more stock. Then
Mm-hmm.
Tiffany comes through next week and says, "Hey, it's gonna be January 21st, guys." Then investors get mad. They don't know it's you, but they
Yeah.
get mad at the sponsor. So this is a high stress
Yeah.
situation. I don't think people understand this stuff.
Yeah. So CTM is not made for everyone. I mean, and and there's a lot of things that you have to learn because for one time I was the study startup guru. And I
Mm.
just kept being in a study startup loop from kickoff to first patient in, from kickoff, and they would roll me off and start me up. And so, like, I was just stuck in that cycle for like 2 years. And then I had to get out of that cycle and get into like maintenance and close out and, CSR and ETMF final,
Why you
reconciliation.
wanted to expand your skill set and
Yeah,
not get stuck in the same thing like Groundhog Day?
exactly. Yeah, because as a CTM, you have to, decisions that you make at the beginning, you could see that at the end of the study. So yes, I want to be at the beginning, but I also wanted to see the full spectrum of things. So I can have a really good understanding from A to Z of a study and not just A to P and then go back to A to P over and over
Mm-hmm.
again.
Mm. So
Yeah.
bridge the gap between your work, CTM, and getting out of that study startup loop and
Hmm.
expanding your skill set. I imagine you work for several CRO during this
Hmm.
time.
Several CROs, small pharmaceutical companies. I actually got a contract working with a pharmaceutical company in Denmark, so ex-US, and they wanted to have a US study. And it was me and the medical monitor, and that was it in the US. And so I
As
did
a
that study.
contractor?
Yeah, yeah, as a contractor. And so I did that study from nuts to bolt, like from A to Z, because there was just me and the medical monitor, and we had
Wow.
15, 17 sites, 300 patients. We had to find the IRB, the vendors, everything. So
CRAs?
we had two towards the end, but I actually had to do some CRA work too.
Wow.
So
That's crazy.
they were able to get everything because I had CRA experience. I could be a CRA. I had CTM experience. So I could run the trial.
So doing
It's-
something like that, okay, you don't have to give me a number, but I know people are watching. They're going to be mad if I don't ask. So
yeah,
that's a lot of work, okay?
yeah.
At that stage in your career, you
Hmm.
can get any job you want. So for you
Hmm.
to do that, I understand it's exciting. You like that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
but it's so much work. The pay had to be good, right?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't outstanding, but it was, for me, I looked at it as an opportunity more so. And sometimes you do have to take those opportunities to get this experience. So now I have on my CV, I can run a study from start to
By
finish,
yourself.
no questions asked, like
Yeah.
that kind of thing, and deliver. So, it was more so, yes, it was within the market rate. It wasn't necessarily because it was through an agency. So if I had
Ah,
contracted with them directly, it could have been probably better, more lucrative.
yeah.
But because I was through an agency, I had my fee, but it was exciting because being a part of something from start to finish, that was what excited me more.
Well, now you're doing all these podcasts, they go directly to you. Tiffany's LinkedIn's going to be right underneath. She could run a whole study on her own, guys. But let's not take her away from Clint Essentials right now. So,
Yeah,
Clint
yeah,
Essentials, let's talk about that because you guys are super excited about this. I just
yeah.
learned about this like a week ago. So I have no clue what's going on. But they've been around for 2 years and 4 months now.
Yeah,
So, can you kind of give us a breakdown of what it is and then what you do as director of operations there?
yeah, yeah. Okay, so we provide tools and resources for clinical research professionals. So our team has been in the industry over 22 years combined. Everyone's been in various, roles. And so what we've noticed through the years is that there's some inefficiencies and we need to get better with things. So our signature product are the CRA audit notes, and they replace the yellow sticky notes that are usually used by the CRAs and that the study coordinators receive on the other end. So study coordinators may come in at the end of the visit and have 100 of these sticking out of charts, and they're like, oh my God, where do I even begin? But the CRA audit notes, they're color coded and pre-printed. So this one says, please complete. And then it has date as late entry, header, initials, page number, patient number, signature, and then it has a blank section. So as a CRA, if you're going through chart after chart and you're like, please complete, you're writing out, please complete, please complete, please complete. This is a time saver for you because you use this one, you check off what you need, you place it on a chart, and then when the study coordinator comes in at the end of the visit, what they see is a color coordination bar and it says, please complete. They see that sticks up compared to 2 yellow sticky notes. And maybe this chart may have 15 yellow sticky notes. You can't tell what's on that yellow sticky note until you actually open it up. But most of the time, study coordinators have to go on to see patients or put those charts aside, and action items age when they could be addressed very quickly. So if that study coordinator saw a serious adverse event or please report to our IRB or a protocol deviation, they're not going to put that chart away because they see something that's screaming at them. But a yellow sticky note, if it's not screaming, I got to go into the fire that is screaming at me.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, as director of operations, like, what do you do? Who's the main client here? Is it sites? Is it CROs?
Yeah.
Who uses Clint Essential tools?
Yeah, it's everyone. So it's the sites because they would want to have in their space, they could have 2 of these because we have 16 pre-printed audit notes. So those are the acrylic holders. So in their monitoring space, they set that up for their monitor and they say, hey, use these when you come in because this helps us after to ensure your action items are closed in record time. It lets us see trends for retraining, and it just helps us stay on top of things communication wise and keeping your study in
Yeah.
our forefront. So that's for the sites.
So, as a site, I mean, I gotta admit, it's cool to be able to
Mhm,
do that. But
mhm,
like, what happens? Obviously, I don't know. Every site's gonna be different
mhm,
because I own a site here. It's brand new in Yuma.
mhm,
We're trying to do underserved as well.
mhm.
So my CRA, like, I'm just glad I have the study. Okay, I'm not like an established site yet to where I could be like, well, you got to use our sticky notes because
Hmm.
yours, we don't like yours because, you're going to put too many. Ours are pre-printed and it's going to make
Hmm.
you think about using it because there's like fewer. So you can't,
Yeah.
you got to think twice before you use one. I would feel
Yeah.
bad to like, I don't know. I don't want to have the awkward conversation with my CRA, but like
Hmm.
what you broke down made sense, like how to justify it to them.
Yeah.
What has there been pushback from CRAs?
No.
CRAs like their creature of habit.
They are. They are. And so a couple of things. The way that you had said it, and that's what a lot of our established sites, our big site networks that are
Yeah.
using our products across multiple sites, they say that. They say, hey, it's not for you. I know what you're doing. You know what you're doing as a CRA. But for us, it helps our team with action item follow up, ensuring our actions are closed quickly. And that's a good reflection of the CRA. If the action items are
Mm,
closed quickly, that's a good reflection. It also helps for us if we see any trends, we can retrain internally before you get on site and we can, that's a part of our kappa of doing, going one step forward. And then also you have to think about this, the transitions and all of the CRA and CRC switches that we see in studies. One CRA may come today, and then 3 months from now, it's another CRA. Having at least some color coordination, it helps whoever's coming in. A study coordinator could be changing, and the new study coordinator coming in knows what's going on. Ooh, two serious adverse events. Okay, let me pick up this one, this chart. So, there's a lot of, yes, creatures of habit, but I know as a CRA, when I start getting bad charts and I'm like, please complete on this one, a protocol deviation on this one, it's like, I need something because I'm spending too much time on this tedious task. I need
right.
to be able to get to the critical, this doesn't make sense, but I'm spending so much time writing. So, it's not as convenient as having one, but when you start writing out, the CRA is writing, and when the CRC is looking to see what they need to address, it makes the world of difference.
I
And
see.
our testers in the field, they're industry professionals, 20% increased 20% efficiencies within 1 week of using it.
Really?
Yeah, decreased time on site are by 2 hours for one CRA because they had like 50 charts and they didn't have to spend a lot of time writing. They were able to get out of the site 2 hours earlier or at least finish up with the monitoring aspect where they can go into other items that they can focus on. And
Wow.
then the study coordinators too, they're not spending. I mean, I used to be a study coordinator. So remember, you may have 15 charts. And I used to start at chart 1 because I had to go in order. But you may get to chart 14 and then see you're like, oh, I'm out of time. I got to go do something else. But then at chart 14 and 15, you're like, oh man, I have 2 serious adverse events, 3 protocol deviations. Like I didn't even know because I'm just following yellow stickies and there's nothing that's important. I didn't even know I had all this
I
fire
see.
at the bottom. So it's a good prioritization of
Wow.
here versus
Yeah.
now.
I could see the importance now that I'm glad you came on. And you do this also. Flint Essentials does this for eSource as well.
Yeah, we're coming. Yeah, so those that have eSource, they're primarily eSource. They're still paper charts, paper ISFs or shadow charts kept, and it's still good. Also, internal QC is the internal QC department uses it a lot.
Mm.
So there's still, even though we're going into the digital age, there will still be a need for the products, and eventually we will be electronic as well with the Flint Essentials line as well. We're doing
Yeah.
that.
Something like this, I can't believe the industry didn't come up with something better than
Hmm.
the sticky notes. I just assumed as I started monitoring, because as a
Hmm.
coordinator, I ask myself this all the time: why sticky
Hmm.
notes? Like, how official is this? Somebody puts a sticky note. I used to have sticky notes fall out of binders all the time from monitor, and I
Hmm.
wouldn't go pick it up because I was busy. So I
Yeah,
was like thinking, how efficient is that? Like, I don't even know where that fell from, nor am I gonna look to see. Um,
exactly.
but when I became a CRA, I realized, okay, well, it's all documented. At least if it's a
Hmm.
good CRA in the report.
Yeah,
But what if it's not? So
yeah,
this comes in handy for those practical issues
Mhm.
right there, where like getting things resolved quickly and then
Mhm.
just having it there easy for somebody to access.
Yeah, exactly. And it has a done box on the end, I mean, at the top. So when the action is done, study coordinator checks it. And, how many times have they moved sticky notes around to the top or to the side or to the,
Yep.
to show that it was done. So, our clients are sites themselves, CRAs themselves, because sometimes they use their stipend that they get for supplies every
Yeah.
month from their company to re-up with supplies that make sense to them. CROs are clients as well, because it helps with CRA turnover. I mean, if you think about it, if you have a system that gives you good work-life balance, that's an incentive to be with the company, because you care, you're giving me the tools that are just going to help with a good work-life balance,
Yeah.
yeah,
We got to talk a little bit about your study rescue. Um,
yeah.
but I have a funny story about stickies. So, like my first year as a coordinator, monitor left stickies everywhere in my binders. So, in one of them, I know what she was asking. I couldn't get it. She was asking for us to find medical records,
Hmm.
and we were not going to get it. We called like 100 times. We weren't going to get the medical records. So I
Hmm.
just took that sticky note out because there was like hundreds. I was like, she'll never know. And it surprised me, like the first thing she asked me next time was that, and I was like, okay. So then I saw the follow-up letter and I was like, so it's documented somewhere else, not just sticky
Exactly.
notes.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And that's too. We have this. This is called an action item card. It's a
Mm.
carbonless action item pad. And so in that case, your CRA would write the actions and then they'll give you the white copy, and you keep the
Wow,
CRA will keep
carbon copy.
the carbon copy. This is old school. Remember
You
old
remember the
school?
CRFs? I
Yeah,
remember
the
those.
old school CRFs.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So yeah, so that one, that's carbon copy. So yes, they do keep record. Even if you lose a sticky note, there's still another record with the action items there.
Yes, I
But
learned
yeah,
the hard way. So SWAT,
yeah,
study rescue.
yeah,
And
yeah.
this interview could go on forever, but I
I
know
know.
you got to go. So study rescue,
Hmm.
you've been getting contracted now to
Yes.
do study rescue.
Mhm.
Interestingly enough, just last week I was also like asked, "Hey, can you go audit this site ASAP? We
Mhm.
have some sponsor audit coming, so we need you to go first." So these sites, like you go in there, and I haven't seen this one, but they're a mess, right? Like, how does
Yeah.
that how does that work? Like a day in the life of a contract study rescue
Yeah.
person. What is the title?
So mostly it's CTM. It's CTM study rescue, because maybe the CTM that was running the study is no longer there, or they did some things that they set up the study incorrectly to begin with, and now 5 months, 6 months later, that's evident that it was not set up correctly. So it's a lot of brain power. It's a lot of, okay, let me ask some critical questions. Let me see where you want to be and where we're behind. And now we have to figure out plans for it. Risk management plan. Okay, how are we going to correct this? So it's different than if you're just regular doing a CTM and you know what you're doing and you set up your study correctly. It's for studies that weren't set up correctly, and you need to be able to say, okay, what's going on here? Where did it go wrong? How do we correct this? What CAPAs do we need to put in place? Do we have this project plan? Okay, we need to create this project plan, that kind of thing. So it's a different skill set, but a lot of companies need it right now, because studies
Wow.
either fell off last year during COVID, and so things that they thought they were going to do, interim analysis, database locks,
Ah,
etc., they're off, and so they're trying to see
yeah.
how can we salvage this study without having to scrap it all
I
together.
got you. Yeah, I misunderstood. So you're doing what I'm getting contracts for site rescue, like more like
Oh,
SWAT. You go in, Okay, this site's amazing. You're doing it at the study level. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah,
I haven't
it's
done that.
crazy. Yeah, so at the CTM level, because there's,
Ah,
and that's one of the things that Flint Essentials we've been working on in the background. I know that you do CRC and CRA Academy, but
yeah.
we do CTM Academy.
CTM Academy.
Well, not a CTM Academy, but we do a clinical trial manager course, and it
Wow.
tells the A through the Z, because there's a lot of things that you need to know along the way. And so that's the thing, like things that you may not know, because as a CRA, you may come in at P and go all the way to Z,
Right.
but you don't know A through P, like, because that's the CTM stuff.
And that's really valuable. So I have like this startup niche CRO. We do investigator initiated trials, but one of
Mm-hmm,
our drug looks like it might go to phase 2 and 3, and like
mm-hmm.
they're gonna expect that I know how to do CTM stuff. So I
Yep.
might need to do that CTM Academy myself.
Exactly. Yeah. So you'll know some of those things, because, a lot of time people get promoted within and they're like, oh, you want to be a CTM? And they're like, yeah. And then you get in there, they're like, ooh, I don't know how to do some of these things. And so that's a course there. Or for a lot of these companies that are needing CTMs like wildfires,
Mm.
it's a good
Everybody needs one
bridge.
now, right?
Yeah, everyone needs one. Everyone needs one. So you do have to come in with industry experience. We're not teaching naive. You have
Right,
to
right,
be
right.
you have to be like a senior CRA or a senior
We're doing the
CTA.
naive stuff. Do our stuff first, then get a job, then go do Tiffany's,
Yeah,
because I'm thinking of doing it. Like if the study, yeah, I mean, seriously,
yeah,
and all these contract CRAs out there, I preach to the followers, look, if you're a contract CRA or you're a generalist, just like Tiffany, you
hmm
can put yourself out there. So
hmm
if an opportunity comes like CTM, you don't
hmm
want to say, well, no, I don't have, no, you go to the
Of
academy
course,
and you
yeah,
figure it out.
yeah, exactly. Because the industry is getting desperate enough where they're lowering the standards just a tad. So before, you have to have CTM experience for at least 1 or 2 years. Now they're considering senior CRA experience with, maybe a certificate program, all of those things there, because there's not enough CTMs to go around right now. There's
Right.
not enough.
So
And
in the
there's too
meantime,
many.
who's struggling at the CRO and sponsor levels by lowering the bar a little? Who's picking
Mhm.
up the slack at the which existing employees there do you think are picking up the slack for is the existing CTMs?
It's the existing CTMs. So the CTMs may be given more studies. Like at one time I had 4 studies, and that's impossible. That's impossible. So, and it's the existing CTMs.
That might be
It's
the new norm now.
exactly, it may be, but that's not good for work-life balance
Oh,
at all.
oh,
That's
oh,
burnout central. That's
yeah,
like, it could be, sometimes they have like associate CTMs, which are like lead CRAs or principal CRAs who have shown interest.
yeah.
So
Wow.
those would be the ones kind of taking up the slack, but they're gonna look within to see if they can find someone who would be willing to step up to that CTM level. But when you get on those calls, you have to be able to command those calls when you're speaking with the sponsors. Push back. You can't be timid. Like you gotta be able to take control of that study, because the study is on your shoulders. You gotta
They
do it.
then at the end of the day, that's your job. So as we're
Exactly.
wrapping up, um, man, thank you so much, Tiffany, for you really broke it down. This just goes to show you've been in this industry forever. You're always learning something
Yeah.
new, like the intricacies of how sponsors deal with CROs and
Mhm.
CTM. Like this
Mhm.
is eye-opening in a lot of cases. So anything you haven't said that you would like to say to Guru Nation about Flint Essentials or anything else?
Yeah, I just say, clinical research is an exciting career. There's so many possibilities once you get in, be a generalist, like Dan said, and so you can go into different areas. And then, definitely check out Clint Essentials, because if you're a clinical research professional, whether you're a CRC or a CRA, our tools will help you. And then if you're a sponsor or a CRO and you're trying to get your studies on track, you know, avoid turnover, keep it within budget. Our products, I mean, just for paying a little bit more than the yellow sticky notes, it makes a world of difference.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll leave it with that. We got Tiffany's LinkedIn link underneath the video. And if you're
Okay.
listening, thank you very much, podcast listeners. Check it out in the show notes too. Everybody go connect with Tiffany. She's been really putting herself out there, and I think it's good for the industry because we need more. It's so secretive. We need
Yeah.
more knowledge. You know, there's only so much like people like me or ECRG can talk about that's still
Hmm.
within our lane. My lane's
Yeah.
getting bigger, but it's still like niche. You
Yeah.
know, I don't have CTM experience, anything like
Yeah.
that. So it's always good to bring on guest gurus, what I used to call them back in the day. So thank you very much, Tiffany. I really appreciate it. We definitely have to do a part two because
Yeah.
there's a lot to dissect still, and we
Hmm.
both have another call to get on soon. But I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks so much, Dan.
And thank you everyone for watching and listening, and we'll catch you later. Bye bye.